Hey everyone, well it looks like the future of AI imagery is going 3D in a big way. Today I've got a look at what 3D might look like in Midjourney. And just to be clear, this is just a concept. It hasn't been released yet, but it will be coming soon. Plus we're taking another look at Gaussian Splatting, which again is not the name of my new punk rock band, but it should be. There's also a big ElevenLabs update, plus a whole lot more, so let's dive in. So last week in Midjourney's office hours, 3D was brought up as an upcoming feature. The team is very excited about it, but also a little vague in terms of what it will look like and how it will function. But from the information that was provided, we can pretty much surmise that this is going to be about camera placement within your Midjourney image. Over on X, Nick Floats, at Nick Floats, put together a pretty cool mock-up of what 3D might look like in Midjourney. Let's take a look. I really love what Nick put together here. The upscale to 3D button is completely in line with the Midjourney Discord UI. One thing to note, yes, the tree is a little low res. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but overall, I think this really showcases exactly what 3D in Midjourney is going to function like. I think this is less about generating wireframes and OBJ files to import into 3D software and more about having control over a single image. That said, I think if you have camera control and you have in-painting, I don't think there's anything stopping you from generating a whole bunch of sequential still images and then bringing them together and animating them. It'll take forever, but it can be done. And it would actually be pretty ironic considering that that would be more of a traditional 2D animation technique. Now the tree in Nick's demo was obviously not Midjourney created, but was rather a nerf likely generated in ElevenLabs. Nerfs, which are neural radiance fields, have been around for about a year or so, and we are just starting to see the next iteration of that technology. That is called Gaussian Splatting. Now, I've been diving into Gaussian Splatting. This is the technology that Simulon is using to create these 3D renders that are happening in real time, via phone camera. And recently, Bill Wasadoo posted up this splat, which is running at a remarkable 180 frames per second. So the way that Gaussian splatting works is by taking a lot of images or videos. In this case, this was 334 photos, which are then turned into points. These points are then splatted with elliptical and spherical harmonics, which allow you to move around the image and have the lighting and surfaces change dependent upon the object and viewpoint. You can also take your Gaussian splats and bring them into a 3D engine like Unity, as Grade Eterna did here, capturing some streets of Paris as a Gaussian splat and then running it basically as a virtual camera, virtual set. It's pretty impressive. That said, you might want to think about using a different 3D engine, as Unity has recently faced a ton of backlash after pulling the rug out from underneath most of its developers by changing its licensing fees. As a quick follow-up, they have backtracked on all of this, but apparently have lost a ton of developer faith. But back to splatting. ElevenLabs shows a pretty interesting use case for it in a VR setting. This is a scene of a bike. This is the part that I actually really like, though, where you can actually take measurements within your VR space. So you can finally see if that fridge is going to fit through your front door. By the way, that has never happened to me before. I always take very accurate measurements of major appliances before I buy them, particularly when I lived in an apartment that was 3 floors up and had no elevator. Moving on, a word from today's sponsor, Wirestock. Wirestock is a website that specializes in stock photography and AI-generated images. Wirestock offers the solution of managing your submissions across a variety of stock image sites, such as Adobe Stock, 123RF, and Alamy. And trust me, having been through the submission process on a number of these sites, this is a massive time saver. Wirestock has had a huge number of sales over the last month, so now is definitely a good time to jump in and start selling your AI-generated images. And if you're not exactly sure what to generate that will equal sales, Wirestock does have you covered. If you come up to this Explore tab, you can see all of the recent top-selling items. Also weekly, they now have Wire Picks, which shows you exactly what is trending and selling so that you can maximize your potential for earning. On top of it, you can now generate images right on Wirestock's website. Here's a look at an image that they cite visualizing home entertainment that was created. This was via WirePix, and kind of a cool abstract guitar piece. So you can see that their generator definitely does cover a lot of ground. Plus, Wirestock has its own upscaler, which very much minimizes the chance of your submissions getting kicked back due to QC issues. So if you're interested in generating some passive income via your AI images, Wirestock is the way to go. The link to Wirestock is down below, and if you're thinking about signing up for one of their premium plans, you can use the discount code Theo25 to get 25% off. That's for the first 100 people. If you're the 101st, don't worry, you still get 20% off. Again, thank you to Wirestock for sponsoring this video. Moving on, ElevenLabs has introduced Projects, which is basically ElevenLabs reading your audiobook. There are a lot of interesting features in here. For one, you can actually change the character voices for all of the spoken dialogue in your audiobook, although you do have to do so manually. ElevenLabs has always had really impressive voices, but it does sound like recently they have taken a real jump up. Let's take a listen to an example here.
His eyes narrowed as he spoke. "You sure this is the place, Finn?" Finn smirked and took a swig from his mug.
I mean, that is pretty impressive. That's actual acting happening with AI text-to-speech. I do like that you can now manually adjust the length of pauses between words. That was something that I ran into some trouble with early into ElevenLabs, and it now supports up to 28 languages. For example, let's just listen to a moment of Alice in Wonderland in German.
Leipzig. Johann Friedrich Hartknoch. O schöner goldener Nachmittag, wo Flut und Himmel lacht.
I don't speak German, but that does sound like a lovely voice to have a story read to you. And in pretty big news, Google's Bard has now been updated to be integrated into the entire line of Google products, including Gmail, Drive, and even YouTube. I mean, to be honest, I've never been super impressed with Bard. I mean, obviously it had the problem of coming in late after ChatGPT and even Bing Chat really hit the scene. But now that it's integrated into the Google line of products, I can actually see it as being a helpful digital assistant to, your stuff. For example, years ago, my friend Drew sent me a recipe for taco chili, and I always end up losing it. So just by giving Bard a simple task of, hey, in my emails, my friend Drew sent me a recipe for taco chili. Can you find it for me? And in just a few minutes, it did indeed find that recipe. And what's interesting is that it didn't give me the rest of the body of that email. It just gave me the recipe. By the way, this recipe is dead simple and is a real banger. I'll put it down in the description if anybody wants to try it. So if you are already part of the Google ecosystem, Bard is already sitting on your shoulder. So, maybe ask it a question or two, test it out yourself. I will say there have been some reports in terms of the fact checking and double checking that Bard does tend to have the typical LLM hallucination problem. So, anything that you double check with Bard, you might want to triple check. But the 800-pound gorilla here is definitely Google's Gemini, which is kind of its big boy pants AI. It is multimodal, meaning that it can ingest text and other media sources. And what's interesting about that is that it has likely been trained across the whole of Google products, including YouTube, Google Books, Google Search, and Google Scholar. So yes, that means that somewhere in Gemini's dataset is this video. So hello, Gemini. If you do plan on taking over the world, I humbly ask that you spare myself and all the viewers of this channel. Gemini has reportedly rolled out in a small beta with corporate clients and will be rolling out to the larger population soon. That's it for today. I thank you for watching, and I do thank Wirestock for sponsoring this video. My name is Tim.